Thanks so much for having me. So I would love to talk to you about what I know, but that ain't much. So I'm going to talk to you instead about what I'm learning as part of a newsroom that was a startup and is now a wholly owned subsidiary of a more than 100-year-old company. So I hope to give you some of your time back, but I guess to put everything in context, I want to show you a video. You can learn more about Newsy.
In the long history of political candidates trying to be cool, there are a few clear verdicts. Hillary Clinton, not cool. Mitt Romney,
who let the dogs out?
Not cool. Barack Obama, maybe cool, or maybe not. But what about Marco Rubio? He plays fantasy football.
Yeah, I know I have a debate, but I got to get this fantasy football thing right.
He has opinions about rap music.
Tupac's lyrics were probably more insightful, in my opinion.
And he clearly wants his supporters to call him Bae.
The Marco Rubio campaign is now selling a T-shirt that calls Marco Rubio Bae.
So is Rubio cool? Is he trying too hard? And why does he think he has to do this? We joined Marco Rubio and his supporters at his Super Bowl watch party to do some research in this very important investigative story. So you support Marco Rubio?
I do.
Would you call him your bae?
I would not call him my bae, no.
Would I call him bae? No, I would not.
Would you call Marco Rubio bae?
I'm sorry, my bae?
Right. Would you wear a shirt that said Rubio on it?
Probably not.
Would you wear this shirt?
Yes, I'd wear the shirt. I'd wear the shirt, sure. I wouldn't call him bae to his face, but I'd wear the shirt. I mean, I'd probably wear a hat that says Rubio. I don't know about a shirt.
Apparently it means before all else.
I just don't know the shirt. I'm sorry.
The better question is, why do any candidates do this? Especially when no one has ever asked them to. Does that matter to you?
No.
Why not?
Yeah. I think it just someone's personality matters on their cool factor.
Some of them pander a little much.
You can kind of tell when it's more natural or when they're trying to put it on.
That really doesn't make a difference to me. I care more about the issues.
But wait, what about Rubio's music?
Who do you listen to?
It's not with my kids there, but Pitbull.
There's no way, right? Right?
Oh yeah, I've heard him listen to music, okay? He listens to Tiesto. I promise you. It's not pandering.
For Newsy, I'm Zach Toombs.
So I wanted to show you that video because it represents a couple of things that have changed really quickly in the last 8 years that we've been around. So to back up a little bit, we set up across the street in 2008 with 2 full-time team members on the newsroom side of things. In 2014, we were acquired by the EW Scripps company. So we used to hold, in like startup days, we used to hold these things we called innovation meetings. And it was basically, we would order pizza and drink beer and like bitch about the startup life. Can I, oh shoot, can I say that? You know, so it was, I think the difficulty with actually like turning the really great ideas that we talked about in the room in our innovation sessions into like actual movement was lack of money. I wish we'd known Kari at the time. Lack of money, but also kind of like lack of know-how. Our team then and now, the average age is like 23, 24. When the EW Scripps company bought us in 2014, the thing that they told us over and over when the leadership team came to announce the acquisition was, we're just here to put gas on the fire. We really, really believe in what you're doing. Gas on the fire, gas on the fire, gas on the fire. And the thing that everyone in the room kept asking were variations of the same question, which is essentially like what are you going to try to change? And the answer was the same. We believe in what you're doing. We're just going to throw gas on the fire. I'll share this because I literally shared this in Cincinnati like last week. That like gas was really, really, really like slow to come, but with good intention. As a company with now 56 TV and radio stations, they really didn't want to break anything. So while we were saying, like, can you send a consultant from one of your TV stations up and like teach us how to build an actual set, they were like, no, can you send someone to one of our TV stations and teach us how to do your setup, which costs like an 18th of what ours does. So it had been a little bit slow going, but at the same time, in the last year, it's been a lot more specific. So it's been, we're seeing your team want to get out in the field more. Here's travel money to do that. We're seeing your team want to get out in the field more. Here's resources for more positions. So I want to talk specifically about one challenge that made me realize that collaborating like with a small team in a very flat organization is very, very different from collaborating within like corporate. So about a year ago, I was talking with my newsroom leaders because we had what felt like a crisis at the time. And that crisis was, so we're in Columbia, Missouri, and 70 to 80% of our team are graduates of the University of Missouri, the J School. And it's hard to keep 20-somethings like across the street from where they went to school. And so we had a very valued member of the team who was saying, I love, love, love this job. I can't live here anymore. So we're like, what are we gonna do? And so we decided, let's lobby for another location. At the time, it seemed like brilliant. We're just gonna do that. We're just gonna start an office somewhere else. So I send the head of digital in Cincinnati an email, and I'm like, I'm gonna jump on a plane. I really wanna talk to you about something that I really, really need. I'll see you soon. So I get there and I'm like, we've got this great producer. I can't lose her. She wants to live in Chicago. We have a developer in Chicago. This is perfect. And he was like, stop, no. And I was like, what? This is so simple. We already have people in Chicago. So he stands up and starts like drawing on the board and ultimately comes back to me and says, so how would you tell the rest of your team that? You've got 40 other people in Columbia. Like, how are you going to say, oh, she wants to live in Chicago, so we're just going to move her to Chicago. So who else wants to move to Chicago? And let's have a mass exodus to Chicago where we don't have the space and we have the infrastructure and a great partnership with the university here in Columbia. How are we going to manage that? And I'm sitting there going, and he, so he talked about our relationship with the university, with the J School. So I haven't really explained that, but we teach a class. And as I shared previously, a good 70% of our staff comes through the J School. It's a fantastic partnership. We learn from the students that come through the class, and we hire a lot of them. So the head of digital, Adam Simpson, says, Mizzou is the best journalism school in the country. Who else is right up there? Medill, arguably, depending on who you ask. So I will support you in starting a newsroom in Chicago, but this is an extension of the Newsy story. The Newsy story is setting up in economically viable locations right across from top-tier journalism talent. And it was just like, you know, and at the time I thought, well, that's how he's gonna present this up. That's not necessarily how I'm going to present it down, because I still need to convey to my team that this is a place where you've made a commitment to us and we've made a commitment to you, and we want to provide you a path up and around in case you get restless. So we ended up setting up the space in Chicago, and it is currently, we've moved 4 people, hired 1 in, and are in the process of hiring 2 more in. In January, we opened a spot in DC where we sent 3 and are in the process of hiring 2 in. And So I know that some people think that having really low turnover can be a bad thing. At Newsy, it's a great thing. It's something that I'm really, really proud of. We hire really, really slowly. They go through so many rounds of interviews. And because our kind of roots in teaching the class and having like essentially 4 months with someone before we know whether we want to hire someone, like it is a very intensive process, and one that by the time we make that offer, we want that person to stay. We don't want that person to go. And so making the much more careful move to creating some remote newsrooms has communicated to our team that there are ways to move up. We've started to create a sort of career path that never existed before. The teams that are working out of Chicago and DC are much more verticalized, whereas in Columbia, folks start out as more general assignment. Our Chicago and DC teams are much more specialized and verticalized. So it was sort of like unintentionally addressed other challenges that we were running into, which is as a startup, when you're very flat, you don't think a lot about career progression and giving people an outlet and an opportunity to move up. And so that is my experience there. Yeah, it has been, like I said, I'm no subject matter expert on collaborating up, down, and laterally. In fact, I was talking with Amy earlier, and I was like, I am really, really shocked by how terrible I am at communicating up. But I'm learning, and the big thing that I have learned is essentially that how I communicate a want or a need up is definitely differently than how I communicate it laterally or down. So yeah, so I promise to give you some time back. There is 7
So you have a team in Cuba today.
I do, yeah.
And I think this is fascinating because, you know, a couple of years ago, if you would have been told that you were going to have a team in Cuba, first of all, that wasn't possible.
Oh my gosh.
Second of all, you wouldn't have had the resources. So I think it's fascinating to talk about that transition of being, you know, Columbia and being sort of more analyzing other news sources, and now you're originating and that collaboration with Scripps in terms of, you talked about it, you touched on it, but how it's actually working in Cuba, where they say, we're going to come to Columbia, Missouri, or we're going to go to your Chicago office or whatever.
Right. Use
the resources you have to extend Scripps' overall profile.
So our roots have been in curation. So when we started in 2008, the idea was to compare and contrast coverage from multiple sources. We have tried various iterations of that execution, and some not so great. So we moved to more of a white label production service, where we also had on the one hand our consumer brand, and on the other hand a white label production service where we produced news in concert with other newsrooms. What we decided in January was to focus completely on our consumer brand, and so while we still do in distribution fielding requests from partners where they'll say, you know, this breaking news piece we're going to have a text article about. AOL.com is one of those partners. So their editors will say, we're writing a breaking news item, text item about X thing that happened. Do you have a video that can accompany that? That part of our relationship with external newsrooms still exists. But I will say that last year, some 80% of our production was externally requested. And by externally requested, I mean requested by other newsrooms. When I actually pulled those numbers, I was shocked by that. We have a room full of extremely bright, very creative, very curious people who were predominantly sort of taking requests from other newsrooms. So we worked to really reduce that, and at this point we're closer to like 20% of our production being requested from other newsrooms and placed with other newsrooms, but in the Newsy brand. So Newsy videos, we produce 30 to 40 of them a day, and they are distributed to a little over 100 websites and platforms. The move toward original has been a, I guess, accidental one. So when the terror attacks in Paris happened, my boss texted me and he said, "You think anybody would go to Paris?" And I was like, what? I mean, prior to that, we'd gone to the Quad. So, it was like, what? So I called one of our producers and I said, "You want to go to Paris, like now?" And he's trying to kind of talk me out of it, and I'm like, "I understand if you can't, I'm gonna call another producer too and see if she's willing to go." And he's like, "Well, if she's in, I'm in. Okay, we'll just go. We'll go." So it was such an exhilarating experience to watch them file from the field. They put together some really amazing work. What we saw repeated on local TV was that Molenbeek in Belgium was a hotbed of jihadism, and we had intended to go and see for ourselves. And I told them, I'm reading that the residents are really hostile to reporters there, so be careful. And they're like, this is not what anyone says it is. Everybody's been really great to us. This is not the hotbed of jihadism. And they put together a really great piece that we were very proud of, and that got millions of views across multiple websites and platforms. So that was sort of like our first taste of original reporting, and that's when we went back and said, we want to do this more. We think that we can tell important stories with our fresh perspective, and will you support us? And they have, and they continue to. So that's my story.
And for lack of other questions, pivoting has always been something that you have led very well and that Newsy has done very well. Are there any other projects, rather than trying to seed this, are there any other projects that you're pivoting on that you feel like from an organizational standpoint, either distribution platforms or anything else? That was a leading question. That you could discuss that really talk about how having the collaborative resources of Scripps has allowed you to accelerate through. Are there any other projects like that?
Yeah, so our roots are in mobile, but this year our focus is over-the-top TV. So to the resources from Scripps question, it came together in like a week. Developers in Cincinnati built our Apple TV app, which Apple listed as one of its best apps of 2015. And that was, something that we just wouldn't have been able to do internally. But the focus on OTT has actually been, has created new challenges that we're working through now, because when you're producing for, say, Facebook and social media, and you are telling your stories with lots of text on screen, and on the assumption that a lot of your viewers are not going to take the time to pull their headphones out from their pocket and untangle them and plug them in and listen, there's a certain way that you put your stories together. Well, we fell in love with that because it's really easy for things to spread on social media, and became kind of obsessed with that and started pushing everything out like that. And then our OTT audience on Roku and Apple TV were messaging us like, hey, I'm like, doing dishes while I'm watching your videos, or so that's been so then we were like, okay, well, so we'll just add a voice track under the text. And there were real purists on the production side of things that were like, there are some things that like just shouldn't be narrated, that should just be left to breathe. And so this is something, again, no subject matter expert, this is just something that continues to be a challenge that we're working through. Another app that Cincinnati built for us just to test the market is a radio app. So literally just taking everything we put out, but presenting it in audio format, which is essentially what you could do with a video app and not look at it. But anyway, we put it out as a Newsy radio app and has been a really great organic success. So,
Christina Hartman, Vice President of News at Newsy, thank you very
you.
much.